Good evening. My name is Greg Embry. I'll be writing on the topic of how our founding fathers, who through their rhetoric, particularly leading up to the American Revolution, pushed for our independence, liberty, and freedoms, to the point that they were claiming that they were being pushed into slavery by the decisions and actions of the British Parliament. That while they were doing this, they were also owning slaves. They were also keeping women, Native Americans, and poor white men down. Were denying some of those same freedoms to the four groups, and we see that after we won independence, and in the Constitution, we see how African Americans, both enslaved and free, were not included in that. The freemen, even though they were free, they didn't have the right to vote. Native Americans were viewed as treacherous. In fact, a lot of the Native American tribes sided with the British during the war, the American Revolutionary War. And then they were systematically pushed off their lands. They were systematically ignored. And you'll see in the 19th century, through that, how their peoples and cultures were decimated, all in the name of progress from the American government. Women were denied the right to vote. Women were almost viewed as property of their husbands in a lot of ways. In fact, one of the in reading Morgan's book today, it hit me how if a woman was published in pamphlets or the news papers, that was considered scandalous. And I found that amazing. But also, in addition to those three, poor white males, they weren't, since they didn't have the money or the time to hobnob with the important people, the gentry. They weren't considered a part of in the Declaration, in the Constitution. All men were created equal, which really was not all men, but it was white, rich Americans, males, white males. So there was a dichotomy there, and that's what my focus of my paper is going to be on. Some of the sources I'm going to use, I have a lot of sources. I may not use all of them still. Two of the sources I'm going to use is two of our books that we read. Terry Boughton's Taming Democracy. I like how his thought process and everything is. And I also, out of Edmund Morgan's The Birth of the Republic, in particular at the back, is a short essay called A Scholarship on the American Revolution Since the Birth of the Republic, by Rosemarie Zagari. How the research and the discussions that have been going on about the Revolutionary War period have developed since the writing of that book. Some of the other sources I'm going to be using is a candid examination of the address of the minority of the Council of Censors to the people of Pennsylvania by one of the majority. This was an individual who was present at the discussions and debates. And he goes in about, in analyzing that document. He says, in the first paragraph, under a cloud of words thrown together with some art in order to bewilder the understanding and mislead the judgment, contains one truth and two notorious falsehoods. How, in my opinion, what I've seen is if you have a false premise or a false conclusion, you throw it in with that falsehoods in with a bunch of words, and it's easier to get your point across, easier to get consensus for that. Some of the other ones, observations on the proposed Constitution of the United States showing that it was a system of aristocracy and tyranny and destructive of the rights and liberties of the people. I could not find an author in that. I'm gonna do some more research. But basically, how a lot of those people who there were a lot more people who were present at that debate than actually signed it. But some of them walked away because they didn't agree with it, the principles. Some of those who agreed with it did so not, or signed it, did not sign it because they necessarily agreed with the premises that were put forth in the conclusions, but because there was nothing more, nothing better out there. Some of the other ones I'm going to be using would like to use the lecture 6.2 between Dr. Van Cleve and Dr. Gildersleeve. How, you know, I'm going to use some out of that lecture, I think, as well. And there's some other minor ones that I'll be using. There are some out about the women in the American Revolution, as well as Native Americans and whatnot. And I'm also going to use some that quite possibly, in my opinion, kind of refutes my thesis. And I believe that that's a good thing to do. Throw in things that don't support, actually, may even support the view counter to yours. That I do recognize that my view is not the only one out there. It's the most important one ever, but other people have other opinions about it. And finally, was the American Revolution really revolutionary? Yes and no. And this might be wishy-washy, and I need to firm it up. If it is wishy-washy, please let me know, and I'll go about. I don't believe, if I'm going to fall on one side or the other, I'm going to say no. But I say yes because the style of government and the length that it went to provide equal opportunity across the board had never been done before. I would say no because, also yes because of all the other revolutions that followed afterwards. But no, because it did not bring those liberties and freedoms to, Native Americans, African Americans, women, and the poor white males. In that aspect, it was not revolutionary. It just maintained status quo. All right, so thank you, and have a great night.